Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten spent the day watching news accounts of the murders at the Tate Polanski residence.
The Los Angeles Police Department worked around the clock searching for the killers. In the late 60s, many young people in California were espousing free love and peace. But in August 1969, LA was far from peaceful.
We're trying to piece the thing together with what small amount of physical evidence we have.
When this crime was committed, crime scene investigation was simply doing a police investigation rather than a scientific investigation. And so furniture could have been moved around, evidence could have been tainted, and lots of mistakes were made.
Of great interest to the police was the word pig, written in blood on the front door of the house. In contemporary parlance, the word was used as a derogatory name for policemen, but to the Manson family, it meant something broader.
Pig did not mean police officers to the family. They meant white people that were either upper class or upper middle class.
The police ruled out robbery as a motive for the crime. They settled on two main theories: murder for hire or a drug deal gone wrong.
It could have been revenge, it could have been narcotics, it could have been almost anything. We don't, if we could pinpoint down a motive, I feel we'd be halfway home.
There were several theories going around when the case first happened that possibly it was a mafia hit and that some dope had been ripped off and it was a retribution for that.
Roman Polanski was quick to discount rumors that drugs were the motive behind the murders.
Sharon not only didn't use drugs, she didn't touch alcohol, she didn't smoke cigarettes.
Now, unfortunately, in the case of the Tate murders, the detectives came to a very quick conclusion that this was a crime that perhaps was due to drug involvement. And once they came to that conclusion, they followed that hypothesis.
In the hothouse atmosphere of Hollywood, celebrities feared they'd be drawn into the extended tentacles of an investigation centered on drugs. Many false trails were laid.
The people that were in her social group, her peers in Hollywood, putting all of these crazy spins. So they were very busy pointing fingers and starting rumors, which all had to be investigated by the detectives that were in charge of the case.
But on the first day of the investigation, the real criminals were gearing up for another night of terror.
Well, Manson was unhappy with the fear and panic that had been caused the first night. So he had kind of a pre-murder strategy session with those that were going out the second night. And Watson said, well, the reason there was so much fear and panic is because we didn't have good enough weapons. We need better weapons. And Manson said, well, I'm going to go along tonight and show you how to do it. They left from the ranch and ended up driving around Los Angeles County for about 4 hours looking for people to kill.
The night after the murder of Sharon Tate and her friends, Lino and Rosemary LaBianca drove back to Los Angeles.
They had gone to Lake Isabella to pick up their water ski boat so that Rosemary's 15-year-old son and his friend could use the boat during a week's summer vacation. So they had just driven back into town, and they stopped at the newsstand of John Fociano's. John remembers that it was just at closing time because he always closed at 2 o'clock in the morning.
He sold them a newspaper with headlines about the murders. They were shocked to hear about such a brutal crime so close to home.
A very unusual thing happened, and probably not unusual for Rosemary because she had a big heart. Rosemary started to cry. Unfortunately, the LaBiancas never made it to bed that night.
Manson entered LaBianca's house through an open door. He tied them up, saying it was a robbery and they wouldn't be hurt.
Manson walked out of the house. He got Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten out of the car. He said, "Don't cause fear and panic like last night, and don't let them know that you're going to kill them."
Van Houten and Krenwinkel took Rosemary into the bedroom. Watson murdered her husband in the living room.
And then Watson and Van Houten ended up stabbing Rosemary LaBianca to death. She had 42 stab wounds.
After the murders, the killers helped themselves to a snack and went around the house wiping off fingerprints.
She did such a good job that when the fingerprint experts came, they found no fingerprints of Watson, of Van Houten, or of Krenwinkel.
They left a signature that would link the Tate and LaBianca murders.
Krenwinkel dipped a towel in blood, and above the inside part of the front door wrote the word "rise" in Leno's blood. On the living room wall, in large letters in Leno's blood, was written "Death to Pigs." On the refrigerator door, Krenwinkel wrote the words "Helter Skelter."
Helter Skelter, pigs. They were obviously clues, but their meaning wasn't clear. And in the early stages of their investigations, the authorities were reluctant to even link the two murder scenes. But the media made the connection.
Market owner Leo LaBianca and his wife Rosemary were found by their children stabbed and mutilated. There were parallels between this and the Bel Air murders. The word "war" was carved into LaBianca's chest, and "Death to Pigs" was smeared in the blood of one of the victims. The word "pig" had been scrawled in blood on the door of the Bel Air mansion, where actress Sharon Tate and 4 others were slain, but police said, despite the similarities, they do not believe the crimes are linked.
There were 2 separate investigations, with each team instructed to follow their own leads and operate on the assumption that the victims must have known the killers.
So the similarities, the commonalities should have been grasped immediately. And it is just shocking that the police couldn't put this together. And the only logical explanation was policing was done differently then. The groups of detectives that were assigned to these cases apparently weren't talking to each other.
Los Angeles police are saying little at this time about possible progress in solving the murders of actress Sharon Tate and 4 others.
The police weren't aware specifically of the Manson group. The police didn't grasp the significance of all of these signals.
Frustrated with the lack of progress, weeks after the murders, Sharon Tate's father, a retired Army intelligence colonel, tried to find his own leads. He visited bars around LA looking for clues.
Dad worked with the police department, but did their own thing at the same time. Intelligence and counterintelligence was his thing.
Hollywood friends of Roman Polanski rallied around him, offering a reward for information on the murder of his wife. Just days after the murders, Manson and 26 other family members were arrested at Spahn Ranch for stealing cars.
We completely surrounded this 200-acre ranch and took everybody into custody that we could find,
including Charles Manson.
It had to be forcefully removed from his hiding place and brought out and put with the rest of the people that were in custody. Normally, when someone is arrested, especially 27 adults, somebody in the group would want to make a deal, but nobody said a word because they were afraid to say anything. I was arresting basically a bunch of what I thought were hippies for stealing cars and had no knowledge that a week before that they had killed 7 people.
They were quickly released.
We could not prove which of these 27 adults stole these 2 vehicles, and because of that, the district attorney declined to prosecute.
Shortly after the arrests, Manson moved his family to a more desolate location, at Barker Ranch in Death Valley. But before leaving, the family killed a ranch hand, Shorty Shea, thinking he had tipped the police off.